what you described before, you've got lots of different types of customers internally, and I think probably historically may have worked differently or had different standards about how they engage with Telent. Do you want to just talk to me about what that kind of landscape looks like and what the commercial driver for you was around standardising that?
So our internal customers are really our users rather than we don't. Our external customers are the likes of the Maritime Agency or other organisations like that, and a lot of the contractual requirements drove a better way or a need to integrate from a B2B point of view from our ITSM platform. We're a BMC house, within Network Services, we're a BMC house, but other divisions within Telent use different platforms, so we don't have a standard model across all the different divisions, which is one of the things that led to one of our decisions, which I will hopefully remember to call out. But effectively, customer demand drove the need to develop a B2B that was going to be scalable, predictable, and have the right level of governance around it, so we didn't break anything when we brought another customer on board.
So, having worked in telecoms for many years, I know not everybody plays nicely together. I'm guessing there's something similar. You might want to implement something in a certain way, but not everybody's necessarily going to agree to that. So do you want to just talk me through what was your process? How did you go about starting and getting it off the ground?
The first process, and a bit like Ian and I inherited the start of the business case formation, and it was really about understanding what our problem was. And the problem was that we spent a lot of resource developing code to build directly onto Remedy, when that was just going to create more problems as we brought the next customer on, and the next customer, and bearing in mind the different ITSM systems across Telent, when we move or migrate or go up to a version, that creates another problem. So we had to think about not only how we're going to service our customer, but maintain a level of cost accuracy throughout any migration programs on the cost to integrate for our customers. So we looked at the cost to do it manually, and then we estimated the time it would take if we started to automate it. And we looked at the costs of the platforms, and we needed to understand which was the best middleware platform for us to go with. We're a Microsoft house with the usual licenses, so MuleSoft was in the frame for that. We picked Jitterbit because of its open standards based and its deployment model. So we had two ways to deploy agents. We looked at the best way to minimize configuration, because customers still require elements of configuration, and Jitterbit supported the deployment model that would work for us and our customers. So we selected Jitterbit in that respect, and we selected KTSL because they have always provided an excellent service from a BMC Remedy point of view, and they were the subject matters for us on the integration requirements against Jitterbit into Remedy, and the outwards facing into the other types of ITSMs like ServiceNow and Avanti.
So you mentioned before about that kind of initial step. I'm such a big advocate. I've seen lots of businesses and been involved in businesses where people assume they know what the starting point is. They assume they know where they are today and start to build forward. And it's only when you lift up the hood you realise it's not actually the case. But you just tell me a little bit about that, because it sounds like that was a piece of work just to understand the starting point.
It really was, because we didn't truly understand how we were going to integrate with the middleware platform on our side. So that was a learning process, and we certainly didn't have any insight into the way that our customers would integrate into Jitterbit through Jitterbit into our systems. As we went through the process with KTSL, it became evident that some of our existing documentation and processes would be applicable. So we, for example, we provide customer portals, and we have email integration, which is very I would class it legacy now, but some customers still have that type of requirement. The way that we support our portal interfaces back into Remedy is the same principle that we do for Jitterbit. We use service definition documents. Yes, so the people that create those, they're not having to go into a new knowledge or upskill or training pattern to understand what it means from a middleware point of view. It's just a service definition document that needs to be applied for that ITSM, ITIL discipline that we're going to use across the interface.
You probably got two lots of stakeholder buy-in, then you've got to get the business case signed off, and you've got to get the customers to sign up to it. Was that difficult? What was how did you go about it?
Well, there was the customer element was the difficult element, but the customer was different, not the cost. Getting the projects aligned was one of the major issues. The internal business case, it kind of wrote itself when you started looking at the efficiency savings, the time, the reduction in the time it was to actually get a customer live. When I developed the business case, I looked at an efficiency model that had an element of shadowing with KTSL after the first customer and the second customer. But the way that we worked with KTSL was fantastic, and we actually didn't need to incorporate as much shadowing because of the unknowns that were clarified through the design process, and the reduction of the impact that I thought we'd have from a knowledge transfer into our teams. So we realised, I forecasted by the fourth or fifth customer we would be about 50% in time to integrate. We realised that within the second interface that we developed across the customers. We had 4 customers lined up for that project, and the priorities for the customers changed during the project for us to integrate, which was particularly difficult, and as Aaron smiled, see us involved in quite a few of those conversations. And that the biggest learning from that side was we needed to have a stronger project manager to drive that customer engagement and ensure that the customer was really clear, not just on what they needed to do, but have their service providers lined up if they had an outsourced model. So yeah, you need to have real clarity on roles and responsibilities and alignment from a program point of view.
Interesting, fascinating, I'd say actually. It's an old problem, but it's one which the goalposts are moving on, or the finish line is moving on. If you roll the clock back maybe 10 years or so, maybe people had access to 3 or 5 systems, right? But here today, the number of devices we have access to, the number of systems, especially in the SaaS world, I don't know how many it is for your particular use case. A lot of those individuals, I imagine, are in field service roles because of the nature of the business, but nonetheless, they could easily have tens of systems. So it's quite something that seems simple and tightly scoped on the surface is then quite complex and nuanced once you start to get into it. What came through loud and clear to me there was risk reduction and cost reduction, which of course are 2 good business benefits to go after.